Hi, my name's Golda Schultz, and this is Living the Classical Life.
Du sinkest nicht durch die Räume, durch Brust. Die Blumen sie mit Lust. Die Blumen sie mit Lust. Wenn der Tage wacht, kehre wieder holde Nacht. Alle Träume kehret
Golda, thank you so much for being here on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Your name, Golda. Golda Meir, the first and only female prime minister of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Why did your mother choose this name for you?
So also at the time when my mother was into feminism and female politics, and I think also Golda Meir was the first female elected head of state anywhere in the world. She was the first one elected, not by royalty, monarchy. It was people chose her. And my mom thought, well, that's got to say something. And my mother's always had the idea that you live up to your name. So you choose a name that a child must aspire to be. So that was her philosophy. Her thought process was, I'm going to give you a name that is strong. I'm going to give you a name that has purpose. And you will either live up to it or you will die trying.
So you said that when you were 10 years old, you were teased for your name.
Oh, yeah. So I was 10 years old and I hated my name and I was desperate to change it. I was begging my mother, please let me change my name. And she said, no, go look up who you're named after. And then we can talk about changing your name. So this was before the internet. So you have to go to the library, you have to go through the
card catalog. I remember those days.
And like, of course, I'm looking up Golda. It's like, Golda. So I'm looking through G and I'm not finding it. I was like, well, this name doesn't exist. My mother's a fool. So you have to go to the librarian and I'm like, I'm looking for a woman named Golda, a book about her. And the woman said, you mean Golda Meir? And I was like, okay, if that's the Golda I'm supposed to look up, sure. And she sends me to the, Encyclopedia Britannica, the great plethora of knowledge that it was and is.
That it was, yes.
And so you're in there with the M's and you're looking through it, and there comes these couple of pages, not even like a little paragraph, but pages about this woman who stepped up and led her country in a crazy time and was willing to stand in the line of fire for her country. And I just went, oh, wow, that's really cool. I don't know if I'm going to do that for people, but at least I know. And then I went to my mom and I said, she sounds really cool. And I was like, yeah, she was. She really was. And that's why I named you after her, so that you know that your name comes from someone strong. Even though you may not agree with the choices that she made, you know that she was strong and she stood by her choices. And she said, I want you to be that kind of person. So that's why I named you that. And if you still want to change your name, then we can talk about it. And I still did try to change my name, and and she kept on just fighting the good fight. And I said, well, when I'm 18, I'm going to change my name. And I got to 18 and I was like, oh, it's too much drama. It's fine. I'll stay with it. And now it's very, very helpful. Because it's really easy to just sign Golda. When people want you to sign pictures, instead of going, Golda Schultz, I'm just like, Golda. There are very few other opera singers that I know who are named Golda, so it's very easy. My intention is to be the Cher of opera, just be like, Golda.
Just one stage name, easy.
Stage name.
You've talked about the fact that in your life you have many women to thank for where you are today. What does that mean?
My journey has always been very full of women who support me. And I know that it seems like that's a strange thing for people to say, but
right.
It's just, but it's not, it really is the case, My mother was the one who sent me to violin lessons, and piano lessons. And my mother is the one who got me made me audition for the school choir. My aunt was a music teacher, and she's the one who told my mother to send me to music lessons. My first music teacher, my first theory teacher, she got me excited about harmony and opera and song. And it was my main singing teacher, she was one of the first singers that I saw. I saw her last, Madame Butterfly in South Africa when she sang it for the last time. And I was thrilled by that. And I had no idea that I was watching an opera. I was just like, my dad took me to go watch, and I thought it was a musical because my dad knew I liked musicals. And so he was like, oh, people sing, so let's go watch this. And we were like, we don't know what they're singing, it's not English. And and I didn't realize that woman was going to be my singing teacher. Then my agent is also a strong woman whose opinion I respect, and who calls me on my bull, and who will support me with my ethical choices and my moral choices, and stand by me and say, I will hold the wall so that you can make the choices that you need to. And so that's what I mean. It's not necessarily great women in the limelight who do these things. It's all the women who are my village, and keep me afloat and my friends and my family. Like those are the women that I'm really talking about. The unseen women that nobody knows are standing with me, beside me, and around me. Those are the women that I'm very grateful for.
So what does it mean to you if you look at careers and how they are pushed by the industry to unfold? What's the role of honesty and sincerity to yourself in navigating your trajectory? Because if you look at a lot of people's Instagram feeds, it looks like people are portraying a lifestyle, portraying a glossy look of being a movie star, and with the photos, they're having to portray themselves as models. But I don't think that's really the core essence of everyone who's navigating into music.
I think that with social media, what we have to also understand is that it's not the truth of life. It's aspects in them. As long as you look at it in terms of vignettes, the way I like to think about it, these little vignettes, these little pockets of time of your life story that you can curate. And so as long as people understand that these things are curated, then the level of honesty can be not necessarily controlled, but just better understood. For me, I try to be as honest as I can about my posting because honesty and integrity are important to me. So if it's important to me, I have to live it like it's important to me, and then have to act like it's important to me. So all the choices that I make about my social media, they have to come from that place. Otherwise, I'm living a life that's incongruent with my ethical standpoint, incongruent with my moral standpoint. And when you're living an incongruent life, you're living in an unhappy life. That's my philosophy. And that's the problem. So I believe in showing people good things that are happening in my life, sure, because that's what it's there for, to inspire people, other young singers, other singers themselves, not necessarily young singers, but other colleagues, to inspire them to also, oh, wow, you're out exercising and training at the gym. Hey, let me get up and get myself to the gym today and like do something for myself and for my health. I don't exercise and work out because I want to look different and look like a model. I'm never going to look like a model. I like food too much. So I've come to terms with that fact about my life. But I do the exercise because I want my body to stay healthy and strong so that I can do my job to the best of my ability. Everything that I do on social media, everything that I do in my life is always just a notion of how does this improve my life? If it's not improving my life, and not necessarily just my life in terms of a monetary aspect or a life experience aspect, but just in general, like my well-being as a human being, if it's not doing anything to further that, then I don't want to do it. And I don't want to do it for a long time because then I'm not going to be consistent. And so for me, consistency is also one of those key core values. I want to be a person who's consistent. I want to be a person because consistency breeds trust. Trust breeds a relationship. Relationship breeds a space where you can create. So it's all these things, they're interconnected. And the more we start realizing that they're interconnected, and the more we start realizing that the things we put out in the world, that we curate to put out in the world, that matters just as much as the things that are happening in your day-to-day life. What you curate and put out has even more impact then. Because you don't control who's seeing it, but you can control what they're seeing. And so I value the responsibility that social media has put on me, that has put on all of us actually, that lots of people seem to be blissfully unaware of. There is a necessity for us to be better with how we present ourselves to the world, especially on something like social media.
I'm so curious about this because if you consider the fact that a lot of composers created their art from a deep and dark place, and with certain performers as well, one thing that strikes me with your social media and inspirational quotes and your performances is, correct me if I'm wrong, things seem to come from a place of joy and even humor. And I think that is so refreshing. Is this an aspiration for you? Where does that come from?
Yes, it's also my religion and like my faith. For me, I love it. My strength is the joy of the Lord. That's one of the Bible quotes that I always remember. My strength comes from my joy. But joy is not the same as happiness. They're two different things. You can be a joyful person and still be going through painful experiences, because joy is an outlook on life. It's a perspective. It is a way to view the world. To view the world as a joyful person is to know that there's optimism. And I want to be optimistic. I find that is my goal. That is my life goal, is to be a person of optimism. So I have to, if that's my goal, I've got to live in that mindset, and I've got to live in that trajectory. And that trajectory is, if I want joy and I want to be a joyful person, I've got to just try. Even this tough time is happening, but tough times are an inevitable thing. Pain is an inevitable fact of life. We will have it. The fact that we try to run away from pain, that just means that more pain's coming your way. I've learned this lesson. So know that pain comes, but pain will pass. And knowing that pain passes, that's how you can be joyful, even when the pain is happening, knowing that it will pass. That's how you get through the practice room, because you know that if you get this phrase right, eventually, one day, when you get this phrase right the first time, that sparks the possibility that you could get it right a second time. The second time breeds the spark of the third, the fourth, the fifth. Even though you've got it wrong 1,000 times, we're back to consistency and Edison and back to Michael Jordan. We're back in that realm of joy is a practiced experience. It is a practiced perspective. It's not a state of being. Happiness is a state of being. You can be happy, but it's fleeting. But joy is a practiced experience. You have to practice it. Otherwise, it's not going to come. And it comes consistently after a lot of trial and error. But you can do it. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a joyful person. And I'm trying every day to do it and trying to find ways to be joyful. So that's what it is.
So joy in life. Now, joy in music. Was there a particular piece that made you want to become a musician? I'll give you an example. So I'm not a singer, but I did want to become one, and there was one piece that did it.
Okay.
And this was Schubert's Nacht und Träume. And I do know that you sang this. It's on YouTube. And you took, I believe, the slowest tempo and most impossible tempo that I've ever heard. I think the only other person who could sustain such a tempo perhaps was Gerard Souzet. That was the piece that definitely made me want to become a singer, and it has remained one of my favorite pieces. Are there any particular pieces that stand out as very close to your heart and your being, or is it just everything?
Oh man, so I love Nacht und Träume, and that's a very powerful piece. So the piece for me, it sounds so cliche, but it's the truth. Maria Callas singing Casta Diva.
Well, it just doesn't get any better than that.
It's just like I remember. So I'd listened to Kiri Te Kanema sing Por Jamor. I'd listened to Kiri Te Kanema. When I first started studying singing, I basically got everything that Kiri Te Kanema had ever sung and just listened to it. And I went through this phase where okay, so she sounds a lot like I want, like a good singer. So I'm just going to listen to everything she's ever sung, and then I'll sing everything that person ever sang. So that was kind of how I started. And so I first discovered Kiri Te Kanema. And then someone said, oh, but you have to listen to Renee Fleming. And then, okay, listen to everything Renee Fleming ever did. And then I randomly was listening to this, because then I'd heard, and then I heard Angela Giorgio singing, and then I heard her sing Casta Diva, and I was like, oh, this is so pretty. Where's this from? So I looked up before the internet, or at least before the speedy internet that we love. I'd found that, Casta Diva comes from this opera, so you have to go through the CD catalog now. And there wasn't a CD of it, there was an LP, a long play.
I remember that too.
And I still have some.
Better sound, warmer.
Yes.
Yes.
And so I get this LP, but it's not Angela Giorgio. It's not like any of the singers that I know. It's this woman called Maria Callas, and I was like, okay. So, and then of course, you can't like skip things, so you have to listen to the opera like all the way through, and you're like, so when's this Casta Diva thing come?
Let's cut to the chase.
Can we like, we're in minute 10, and she's still not there. Who are these other people singing? So it's like going through this whole thing, and then the music starts, and you hear the flute. You hear that lovely little flute moment coming in, bringing the tune in, and it's just like, oh, I think it's happening. And she starts singing. And here we go back to the pain and the joy. And in it, you hear all her pain, but it's so controlled, but so warm, so alive, and so fragile, all at the same time. But it's the most powerful thing I've ever heard. And she's barely 5 bars in, and like, and you know how long the phrase just to say the word Casta Diva is.
Yes, it lasts
like just literally arch. Her saying the words Casta Diva, in those 2 words, she built me a universe, and I wept. And that was it. That was the drug, the gateway drug for me, and loving opera has to be Maria Callas. And I consumed her in a way that I'm sure every young singer, every fan of music and every fan of classical music has consumed her with a gluttonous, scary appetite that made me fearful, because I just wanted more of what. And I was just like, how can this woman who I know nothing about, who knows nothing about me, how can I want to dissect every moment of her psyche and just want to sit with her and hold her and like talk to her and say, what are you doing? You're so stupid. But like, oh my God, I love you. Like all at once. And that's the thing. And then like another moment was also just listening to any song of Brahms that J.C. Norman sang. Like the Ophelia Lieder for me by Brahms with J.C. Norman singing them was just beyond magical. Just the way he said it and like the gravitas of that moment for this woman and the way she sings it, it's the same kind of experience of just, you hear these people put their life force in a moment, and I just get to consume it. And that was so profound for me.
So if we talk about this zone of joy and intoxicated passion, for you as the listener there with Callas, is it possible for you as the performer to also find this zone of unabashed, unrestrained joy? I'm asking because we're also interested in the concept of what it costs us as performers to be up there and sometimes suffering.
So I always think back to Leontine Price says, never sing on your capital, only sing on your interest. So never give all of your voice and all of your experience, because, and like the way I understand it is twofold. Like when you're singing, you don't want to overtax your vocal cords. So don't work on the capital. You work on the interest, and the interest is built with your technique. The interest is built in the practice room with your coachings, with your lessons. That's how you build the interest on the already existing instrument that is there, because we're increasing our circle of competence. We're adding to our wonderful plethora of expertise. So when you sing with interest, you always know that there's something that you're protecting. You have to protect your capital. You don't just give it away to people. So that's the vocal part of it. The acting aspect of it, that the way that I see it, and this is the thing that I try to do very much, is that if I'm on stage and I'm acting with my full capital, for me as a performer, that stops it from being something, and this is my philosophy. I don't believe that this holds for everybody, but this is how I get through. My experience is to allow my job is to allow an audience to see themselves in a space. For them to do the imaginary work of having empathy and going, oh, that could happen to me, or I know someone that's happened to. Oh, what if that were my life? But for them to do that, I can't be so fully Golda and invested that they can't see themselves. I don't want them to see me. I want them to see themselves. And the only way I can do that is I act on my interest, not on my capital. I do my work in the rehearsal room with my empathy, and there I'm sometimes tapping into my capital because I'm trying to understand a character and I'm trying to myself have empathy for them and the choices that they make. If you look at someone like Don Giovanni, and yes, my examples will usually come from Strauss or Mozart because they are my homeboys. Love you guys. So you look at someone like Donna Elvira, come on, lady, really? You're following this man around Spain, just like dragging your suitcase to every town he's going to be like, I'm looking for Don Giovanni because he told me we were married. And that's the experience that everybody has, like, really, girl? You're just going to chase a man? Oh, you're going to chase him down. But, funny story, we've all been that woman. We've all, you've stalked them on social media, you've stalked them on Facebook, that you happen to be in the same coffee shop as them.
Yeah, oops.
Oops, oh my gosh, you're here, me too. Let's have a drink.
Let's be friends.
Mm-hmm. So we've all done it in some shape or form. And in the rehearsal room, I'm busy working through all of my mess of a life to find a space where Elvira can come out, so that when I'm on stage, an audience member can have the experience of, oh yeah, I've been her. I know that. Instead of finding her laughable, instead of finding her someone comic, because she's not, because like what's happening to these people is real. Selena, yes, she's a flirt, and sometimes and that is the day her flirting went too far. We've all been that story. And if I don't do the work in the rehearsal room, all that people will see is either a caricature of somebody that they won't empathize with, that they won't see themselves in, or they'll see me working really, really hard. And I don't want that. So that's what I mean for me. So the joy for me, when my biggest joy comes when an audience member writes me or sees me and says, I saw myself on stage. I don't know how you did it, but I saw me. You told my story. I was doing Marriage of Figaro. No, not even Marriage of Figaro. I was doing Turandot, and I was singing Liu. And an audience member wrote me on social media afterwards, a couple of days, and said, thank you. I was going through a really tough time, and watching you as Liu, even in the darkest moment, say, I'm not going to be afraid. It made me think, I don't have to be afraid. I'm okay. And I said, I don't need reviews. I don't need critics to like me. I don't need opera companies to love me. But if someone says, you made me feel that I'm going to be okay, I did my job.
So that's the audience perspective of what you're hoping they experience in the concert hall. Is there a certain perspective that you have to bring with yourself on stage in order to find your optimal zone? Recently, I was speaking of Leontine Price. I was watching a YouTube video of her giving encore after encore. To me, I don't know that much about her life yet, but it makes me curious to investigate more. But it seemed to me that she was projecting nerves of steel and an ability just to completely lose herself in the act of performance. But what I'm wondering is, for you, do you feel like you're participating as a part of what the audience is experiencing, or do you have to create a zone apart from the audience in order to feel this is you, and across this barrier, I am giving something outside of myself, if that makes any sense?
Yes. I think I understand what you're saying. So I think we do both, for me. yes, I have to put myself in the optimal zone so that I can be a part of. Because what we do, this is why I think live theater, when people tell me, oh, opera's dying, it's not going to survive, I'm like, it will. It has to, because we all want to be in the dark together telling stories. We all want to sit by the firelight telling stories. We all want to watch a story be told and ooh and ah and grab someone by the hand and go, oh, you want to catch your breath. And if I can be in some small way a part of that happening for somebody, that's the greatest experience for me. So yes, I do think that I have to get myself in the zone to be able to tell the story. Like one of my acting coaches, when we were working on doing role preparations and things, and you're trying to understand character psychology, they said you got to work out your process of how you get into a character, but in a way, and some people do method, and that costs them a lot because they themselves are pulling from their life experience and carrying their life experience with them, and for me, watching someone do that is amazing, and I'm thrilled as an audience member. I'm even thrilled if someone's like that on stage with me, because I'm like, ooh, this is so fun, so scary. Don't just say, woo, don't kill her. But for me though, my process is, I always think, especially because of like the operas that I do and the roles that I sing, mostly ingenues, not a lot of life experienced women. So I have to have empathy with them. And so for me, they don't necessarily have to be me, but they have to be women that I want to be friends with. So I have to create, because if I'm not friends with them and I have no empathy with them, I can't play them, because I'm going to be too busy judging their choices. And I never want to judge a character's choice, because if I'm judging them, that means that they're not happening authentically. If they're not happening authentically, the audience will know, and then the audience will disconnect. So that's my process. So my process is, yes, I have to do that work of gaining empathy with them and making myself a great friend. Like someone like Sophie is if I were to meet her in real life, she'd be one of my best friends, because I've created such an empathetic relationship with that figure and that character, and I love her in a very deep and real way. But she's not me. Her life isn't my life. My father would never marry me off to some stranger just to make money. Just for a title. My father would never do that. My mother would never send me off to some Catholic cloistered school where I don't learn anything except how to be a good wife. That's not my life experience. But even with all that, she's still someone I want to get to know, because with all that, there's this little kernel of just strength and resilience that people don't realize is there. But it's there because she does the bravest thing that any human being will ever do in their lifetime. And this is what makes her exciting. She says, no, I won't let you do this to me. That is the bravest thing any human being can do, is telling people where their boundaries are. And Sophie does that. She does that. It is the biggest act of bravery. And Hofmannsthal understood that. And Strauss understood that. And you just go, oh, this is the bravest girl I know. And that's why, so that's the thing. But when I'm playing it, Sophie's living her life, not Golda going, yes, and now I go here and I do this and I'm doing all these fun things so you will like what I'm doing. It's not that. I'm trying to make the authentic choices in the rehearsal room so that it's not me.
So if that's not already an overload of process and layers of things to comprehend or perhaps live into, then there's also stage fright, which I've experienced that as a dominant force on stage, and most of the performers we've spoken to here, and you've talked about it, and I'm not sure that I've experienced it quite to the extent that I understand you have perhaps.
I had fainting goat syndrome, I believe.
Fainting goat syndrome?
Yes,
what's that?
Fainting goat syndrome. You see things. You imagine the goat that when it experiences fear or it's in a terrified situation, it faints and pretends it's dead. So this is my version of that. So I had such horrible stage fright that I would faint after every performance.
After?
Yes.
But not before
during.
or during?
No, I would go white in the face, pale, blood would drip, blood would leave my brain, and like I don't know where it went. I think blood literally just stayed around my heart and my internal organs to just keep me alive. But the extremities were, I would sing, and I would fall over, and that's how I started.
Okay, I mean, so if you have nervousness that is to the blackout level, but you've been performing everywhere. I mean, you made your 2018 debut at the Met, James Levine, humongous venue. How do you reconcile that level of suffering with the fact that you do it regularly? Do you have strategies?
So the shock therapy was what my teachers recommended when that happened. So this was 2002. This is a while back. I had my first performance in front of other young musicians, aspiring musicians, and I fainted. And I was woken up, and then I was called to the head of the department's office, and he sat me down and he said, well, that was interesting. Never seen that happen before. And I was like, yeah, so I'm very sorry, but I think I'm going to have to cancel this class. I don't think I can be in this department because I'm clearly not a performer. And he said, oh, no, that's not why I brought you in here. I just brought you in here to tell you that you're too talented, so you're going to have to just suck it up, and I'll see you next week, and you'll do it again.
Oh.
Yes. And he said, and I said, I'm sorry, no, I'm not going to do this. And he said, oh, no, you will. And here's why. Because eventually, one of two things will happen. Either you'll die from stage fright, or you'll get over it. So you choose. But I'll see you here next week. And even if you don't sign up to perform, you will. I don't care what you sing. You can sing the same things over and over. Doesn't matter. But you will just get up and you will do it. And that happened for 6 months.
6 months?
6 months. Regularly fainting. Sometimes not fainting so badly, but just regularly getting woozy. And I really hated it. And he said, well, you have to finish the year out, so your choice. And I'm very much the kind of person I like to finish what I start. So I was like, fine, I will do this 1 year and then I'm out. Thank you so very much. Goodbye. And then we had this open day at the music department where people from outside can come in and see what we do. And I was scheduled to perform. This time, not in front of people I know who had got used to the fact that I fainted to the point where people would stand on either side of me just like to catch me so that they could just lay me down and move my lifeless body to one corner while someone else played the piano concerto. And I would wake up and go take a seat. These are true stories. So there I was, and I had to sing in front of people. And I remember it was happening, and I could feel it happen. The cold palms is happening now. Palms get cold because my body goes, stress. So it wants to protect my heart and my internal organs. So it takes all the blood from everywhere else and puts it here to keep me alive. So that starts happening. And then the ears start going because the blood is leaving your brain. And just, and the pianist is looking at me, and I'm just like, and the pianist is just like, you'll be fine, you'll be great.
I said, no, I'm not.
And the audience is hundreds of people, and they're all just looking at me, and I'm just like, oh. And I held the piano, the bell, I held it
For dear life.
and I mouth. You feel that, you know that moment where your tongue gets too big and it's cottony and it's yum yum yum. That was happening, and I just went, my tongue is swollen. I'm not gonna be able to sing. My tongue is swollen. Have I been poisoned? And I remember, I don't know what happened, but I looked at the audience. They were looking at me, and I was looking at them. It felt like forever. And I just said, I'm really sorry, you guys, but you all are making me really nervous. So I'm gonna need a minute.
You said that?
Yes. And the exact thing that you just did, they laughed. And the minute they laughed, the blood went back to the rest of my body. Because then my body knew, you're not in danger. You're fine. And I haven't had stage fright since.
You're kidding. I was going to ask if there was a trajectory, but it really just went like that.
Because my body knew you're not in danger. There is nothing dangerous here. Vulnerability is a very scary place to be, but being vulnerable doesn't mean you're in danger. And that's the thing. Our fear responses are based on you're in danger, you're in danger. Stage fright is you're in danger, you're in danger. But the danger that we're fearing is you're vulnerable. And being vulnerable is not fun. But when you tell people that you're vulnerable, the majority of the world, if they're not horrible, the majority of the world will smile and say, I've been there. I know that feeling. You're not alone. And they'll laugh awkwardly with you because it is awkward to be in a space of vulnerability, to see someone be vulnerable and have them also still remain there, be willing to be vulnerable in front of you. As an audience member, you go, wow, that's really brave. So I'm going to sit here, and when you're ready to sing, I will listen. And that's it. That's what stage fright is in my mind. It's the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of you giving so much of yourself and people saying, it's not enough. So that's why I wear this chain. It says you're enough.
Golda, thank you so much for being here and for sharing this discussion about life as told loosely through music. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. It was fun.
Yes.